Yeah. All right. Well, I wanted to tell you a couple things about the news here, and there's a big InfoSec drama happening right now, which demonstrates something actually pretty important. So, these guys, the Exploit Lab, gives training for information security, and in particular, they had some class where you learn how to make exploits. And then Joe McCrae, who's a friend of mine, I see him at conferences. I often send students there, and he was on my links. For $100, you can take his exploit development course. And I don't know how many of my students did, but I certainly recommended it and said it's worth extra credit. And people that were in that course then complained that he was using stuff that was from another course. Now, this is very common in the industry. The certified ethical hacker, original documents were nothing but cut and paste from articles on the web and stolen from everybody in sight. And there are many prominent hackers like Ankit Fadia that just do this. And there's another guy who's a complete fraud, was in prison for con man. He's an information security guy. He has a bunch of books that consist of nothing but cut and pasting other people's books and putting his name on it. So there's a lot of this, and there's a bunch of very mean, bad-tempered vigilante types that hunt this stuff down and abuse people. And the same guys that tried to remove my certification because they just make up stuff about people when they don't have anybody to tear apart today. They'll just pick somebody else and tear them apart. But anyway, so I have no idea whether right or wrong on this. But the point is, they claim that he's using their stuff. And first he said he was only using their virtual machines, but nothing else. And they all picked on him. They made a joke account pretending to be him on Twitter, saying insulting racist things, and just did their usual stuff, which is like what Anonymous and LulzSec do when if they feel like you will respond when they torment you, they flock around you like crabs and start tearing you apart for the fun of tormenting you. And so he finally, like last night, posted this angry meltdown explaining how the reason this happened is because he used to work with the guys, he helped develop this stuff, and they ripped him off. He deserved they took his share of the money, they demanded money, made him homeless and everything else because they didn't make enough money off the classes they were supposed to. And he has his side of the story here. But the thing is, this is expressed in a really unprofessional way, and this gets you in trouble. He's down to threatening to beat people up or kill them or something. It's getting pretty bad. This makes you look bad, and this means they will just attack you more and more and more. So this is what tends to happen to lead to these ridiculous dramas. I mean, the total dispute is over maybe a couple $1,000s worth of courseware, which he has some reasonable argument. It should be settled in small claims court with lawyers, or somebody pays somebody $500 and that's the end of it. But instead it's going to be screaming, yelling, drama for weeks. And this is the kind of stuff that drives people out of the business. A lot of people, when they do get savaged this way, they quit completely in disgust. And a lot of people on the sides decide to go do something else because they don't want to get into this high school drama backbiting nonsense. So here's another one that could have happened the same way. Tavis Ormandy went to Sophos Antivirus, which I'm using on his Mac. And he analyzed it, and he found multiple serious problems with Sophos Antivirus. The kind of stuff that makes you just think these guys must be complete idiots. I don't ever want to use their product. But he told Sophos, and Sophos passed it, and they had a very professional response. This is the right way to handle it when somebody does something you don't like. I mean, they said, he contacted us, he found all these problems, so we fixed it. He found this one, we fixed it, he found this one, we fixed it. And you say, thanks a lot, you're a great guy, please tell us if you find any more. This is what you have to do, even if you hate their guys. You've got to be professional. And that's how you make something go away. You know, because if they had responded by saying, we didn't do anything wrong, he's just making it up, which is what Apple did the first time they got owned, or they had some argument about why he hated them, this was just a vendetta, which I heard it was, by the way. They could have made that argument. There was like background. There's a reason why he did this, which is not pretty, and they could have got into that. But they didn't touch any of that. They said, all right, he found the problem, we fixed the problem, these problems have now been fixed, we're still in business, you know, everything's fine. This is how you end drama. It is very difficult when people start accusing you of personal stuff and trying to destroy your reputation. You know, like 4 people come after me with this nonsense, and it is very difficult to not punch back, but that's what you must do. You have to end. It's nice to imagine that if you're a good, honest person, you will have a good reputation, but there will always be some idiot throwing mud at you. If you go into politics, you know, they will just grin. They'll always make up something that's not true if they have to. But more likely, they'll look up something that is kind of true about you because nobody's perfect, and start throwing. You just have to learn to cope with it. Anyway, I just mention it because it's a big issue in this business. And how you handle people and how you present yourself is very important. And here's Anonymous doing it again. Anonymous made a video. Now they've defined Operation Dorner to do something about what they see as the corruption of the Los Angeles Police Department because of Dorner's manifesto and the fact that they shot some innocent people just thinking they were Dorner, which is a pretty rotten thing to do, and they're right to complain about that. But anyway, then the way they phrase it is they say, you have to take up arms against the LAPD. And what they probably mean by that is use the lower but ion cannon and hack them, but that is a very unwise thing to say in this context. And this is why the anonymous people end up hauled into court and accused of being terrorists. And they say, we're not terrorists, we didn't mean anything. You say, well, you sure look like terrorists, and you talk like terrorists, and you call other people that are not in your control to take up arms. So, you know, you're going to have an awful hard time explaining to a judge in calm proceedings exactly what you thought you were accomplishing with this statement. And it's not legal to say things when they're rotten enough. That was on one of the quizzes here, is it legal to threaten an FBI agent? And it's not illegal to threaten to kill a law enforcement officer or the president or anything. I mean, it's not as bad as doing it, but the threat itself is still a crime. And then if somebody does something, you're part of the conspiracy, you plan it, and that's really serious. So anyway, it's
Does this does this have to do with that cop that's hiding out in the woods right now?
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
That's right. And so Anonymous is now embracing that guy and saying he's on the right side, although they do say, like in the middle, we don't condone him shooting people either, he should knock that off, but that's not their main message. And you know, this is Anonymous always does this. They go way out there, way past, I mean, first they started protesting something, which is probably okay, and then they got to get crazier and crazier until it's entertaining, because the main thing is to have fun, making offensive videos, and hopefully getting someone to yell at you. That's the fun part.
There's not a single hacker that publishes most of the majority.
It's anybody who wants to use the name.
Anybody can use the name, but in fact, there are leaders. There are like 5 or 6 influential leaders, and now there's like 2 or 3 main Twitter accounts and blogs that are the leaders, and if they don't like what you're doing, they will denounce it and it will fade out. It's a spontaneous group, but they hang out in your chat room, and like any spontaneous group, leaders appear. What they don't have is rules, just leaders. And that's, you know, that's a problem. If they were a legitimate political organization, you know, like Common Cause or the ACLU, they would have rules, like you can't break the law, and if you do, we will throw you out, and you can't speak with the voice of the group anymore. That would be really good for them. But they're way over on the illegal side now, like the IRA. Now, the IRA had their legal arm, Sinn Féin, and they actually disarmed the IRA, and they actually went straight. But Anonymous would have to go through a revolution like that inside to move from where they are, which is crime for the fun of it, over to actually legitimately attempting to control the political process. I mean, if they were serious, they would start a political party, put up candidates, have some kind of platform, not be committing crimes all the time, then they could try to push their agenda, but they don't have an agenda. They just hate everything and want to scream about it. Anyway. So here's an article saying college is worthless and no bother getting a degree. These come out fairly often. I kind of imagine you people don't necessarily agree, but anyway.
Why we're here.
I think so. But anyway, it is an opinion you hear now and then. And you know, a lot of my students face this. One thing that's very annoying is you can't get an undergraduate degree in information security, not anywhere really. You can only get it in something like computer programming, which is really not the same thing. So a lot of people are frustrated. But anyway, a college degree does greatly influence your earnings through life and how far you can go in management, because it is believed, rightly or wrongly, that a college degree shows a level of maturity and ability to cooperate with an institution that means you can be trusted in management more than someone without a college degree. And I must say, that makes some sense to me. Because being in a management at a company and moving up involves the same kind of tolerance and nonsense. And like I was just talking about before, how we can respond to things in a way that furthers the institutional goals instead of just creating more turmoil and messing up the place. So I think you kind of learn that in college anyway. And this one's kind of fun. So the Big Bang Theory has an Easter egg on it. This is Major Malfunction, who is a great guy. I've seen a couple of his talks. He's a lot of fun. And Anomori hacker in Britain. He noticed that there is this page that appears and vanishes so fast you can't even see it at the end of each episode. And so he wrote a script to go digitally through all the digital copies and harvest that and post them, and now you can see them. And there's a whole page just full of jokes there, deliberately made hard to see, waiting for someone to figure out how to dig them out. And that's what he did. So anyway, that's what they call an Easter egg. They're all in every games and Google and software products have Easter eggs. There was one in Excel where you type in a certain thing and out comes the aircraft simulator you can play. A lot of people do this. They put in some unexpected thing in there that only people that look pretty hard will ever find. So, let's pick up with our chapter here, unless anybody has any questions about anything. Your graded stuff is up here, so I guess probably at the end of class, come get them. Take the quizzes, but leave the yellow envelopes. I'll need them for next week's quiz. Anyway, so we got down to mail protocols. We're going through TCP/IP here. This is basically Net Plus stuff. So SMTP is used to send mail on port 25, and unfortunately, it often runs with no authentication or just plain text authentication. POP3 is the same. POP3 runs with plain text authentication by default. You can use port 465 instead of 110 and run it over an encrypted channel, but that is not done by most mail servers. The only one I know that offers that service is Google, although I haven't used POP3 in several years, so hopefully some more people have wised up and started using it. Started encrypting it, but most people, if you turn on an email client by default, it sends your password in the clear every 5 minutes over your network. You can just pick it up with Wireshark, and that's not good for you. Yeah.
Just a quick user question. In the, like for instance, in the in the iOS system, like the mail client that's in there,
Yeah.
that uses POP3 when it connects to like Yahoo or Gmail.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it does. Now, if you connect to Gmail, you must use an encrypted channel. Gmail does not let you use unencrypted POP3. And usually after Google does something like that, the other people are shamed into it within a few years. So maybe Apple and Yahoo are doing it now. You have to take a look. The simplest thing, though, is to sniff the traffic and see what connection it makes. But yeah, it's a good question. It's just what you did in the project. If you just sniff the packets, turn on your mail client, read your mail, and search for your password. It's either there or it's not. That's the simple answer. That's a recommended thing. You see how many times your password is flying over your network in the clear. It'd be a good thing to know. Anyway, IMAP is an alternative to POP3, and I don't think it uses encryption by default either, but I'm not really sure. Because although these things are pretty much going away, not very many people use POP3 or IMAP anymore. That was it from a time when you would have one computer and internet access was spotty and expensive. So you would connect briefly, download all your mail, then read your mail, prepare your answers, connect briefly to send it all. It's really not that popular anymore because typically your mail is removed from the server when you look at it locally, so you can't look at it somewhere else. Although you can leave it on the server and just put a copy locally. So there's a lot of other protocols. Here's what you use to connect remote control machine from a distance. Remote access. Point-to-point protocol is the first one, used by your ISP to connect you to the internet. IPsec is an encryption protocol, often combined with one of these others to provide confidentiality. Point-to-point tunneling protocol is Microsoft's proprietary VPN protocol. It makes a virtual private network so you can travel to a coffee house, turn on your laptop, connect to the company network, and you'll get a local IP address on that network and have local access to the server and the printer and everything, just like you were at work, just like you have a really long cable and you're plugging in. That's the goal of virtual private network. You can be away and be connected as if you were still right at work. And so to do this, you need two things. You need tunneling that will take the layer 2 traffic that's on your local network and move it over the internet by encapsulating it in layer 3 packets. And then you need encryption so that everybody can't read and interfere with that data. PPTP is Microsoft's older product, and it's actually got quite a lot of security vulnerabilities, not recommended to use anymore, but it is extremely commonly used because if you don't pay for a Windows server and all you have is a Windows client like Windows 7, you can run a PPTP server on it for free. And you would have to go buy a Cisco VPN device or a Windows Server product if you wanted to do something better. So it is the cheap and easy one to set up. And there are third-party products that do the same thing like TeamViewer and LogMeIn. And they have their own restrictions. And I'm not sure how secure they are either. They do have some encryption though. Whether you can hack into it, I don't know. I haven't seen anybody take a serious stab at LogMeIn or TeamViewer. It would be nice if somebody like Tavis Ormandy would really try to rip that stuff apart. Then you'd know how secure it was. That's why I'm still using Sophos antivirus, because the fact that Tavis Ormandy ripped it to shreds doesn't convince me to switch, because the other ones just haven't had him hate them yet. So my theory is, this is the only one that's actually had the first 10 horrible problems fixed. The others probably have 10 horrible problems no one knows about, but I don't really know. An alternative theory is that Sophos is much stupider than other companies and you should go to them. And I just don't know the people involved to make that judgment. Anyway, yeah?
There's a VPN service called OpenVPN. Does it use PPTP?
No, OpenVPN uses its own system, and it's perfectly fine. It's fine. It has been examined quite a bit. I think it's pretty good. OpenVPN in earlier versions had some vulnerabilities, and they fixed it. I think you've got projects here where you set up some OpenVPN. And it's available. It's just fine. It does the same thing. Tunnels traffic and encryption. Anyway, L2TP is the tunneling protocol you can use to move traffic. It does not have encryption, so typically you use L2TP and IPsec together. L2TP to deliver the packets and IPsec to encrypt them, and that is considered very safe. Nobody has any problems with that. IPsec has not been broken. It is the most modern most powerful encryption technique for this kind of purpose as far as anybody knows. And Bruce Schneier, who is really good at this, did analyze L2TP, IPsec encryption, and he said it was good. He's the guy that found a lot of the problems in the earlier ones. So it has been examined by competent people and determined to be pretty good. Of course, nothing's perfect, and 10 years from now they'll probably all get hacked and have to go to the later version, but right now they're okay. Yeah?
How come we can't operate in NAT? NAT?
You can.
Since
Some tunneling can go through NAT and some can't. In general, it depends on what kind of protocol you're using to carry them. Another subtlety is some of them use non-TCP, non-UDP packets, and those typically don't pass through home routers. Yeah?
Oh yeah, what's the difference between if I used one of these, but it was a UDP as opposed to TCP?
Right. Those are both fine usually. It doesn't really matter. TCP has this in ACAC and the acknowledgments at layer 4, but most VPN protocols will add that kind of stuff at a higher level anyway. So just the fact that you use UDP doesn't make it bad.
Does it make it better because it doesn't have to do a handshake?
No, it really doesn't matter in practice. It doesn't really matter what it uses as long as it uses it correctly. They'll all get there. So then you might need a AAA server, and there's really two main AAA servers. AAA is authentication, accounting, and authentication, access, and accounting. And that is authentication, authorization, and accounting. There, finally got it right. So the Radius is the old-fashioned one, intended for many dial-up users with 56K modems, but it's still used on more modern networks. It's just a way to set up a server that will have everybody's name and password so that people can dial in and you can collect credentials from the people and find out not only letting your authorized users. The more modern one is TACACS Plus, which is the Cisco version of it, which is more secure and encrypts the entire login process instead of just the password and has a few other improvements. But those are what's typically being used when you go away and connect to your company network and you have to present some kind of credentials to prove that you're really an authorized user. VPNs are clearly a security risk. If you let people from outside your company connect to your network, then you really better be sure who they are, and so you worry about that. One common way to break into networks and pen test is you find somebody with an old VPN service like PC Anywhere turned on. PC Anywhere was used like in the 1990s to let you have remote control over a machine, and the old versions were very vulnerable. It could even send everything in plain text, So if you war dial the company, try all their phone numbers, you will often find some modem that's left on. You can make a dial-up connection through some old neglected machine, reach some old remote control client like PC Anywhere. It's one common vulnerability. Anyway, so PPP is dial-up connection to servers. IPsec we talked about using UDP 500. That's the PPTP. That's 1723, a number you see a lot. This report will come in on. If you have traffic on port 1723, it is probably correct to interpret it as a security risk because it means people are using PPTP, and you'd be a lot better off to upgrade them to something better like IPsec. So L2TP, IPsec is better on 1701 by default. There's Radius and TACACS. Those are the older ones. TACACS Plus is the modern one you'll see. There you are, authentication, authorization, and accounting. Those are the three things you typically want from the server that receives your remote access clients. So you have to know who they are, authentication. You have to let them only do what they're supposed to do with authorization, and you have to keep track of what they do. You keep a log. Originally that was so you could bill them for hours of service, but nowadays it's for security monitoring. So you can, if somebody does come in through your VPN client and do something bad, you want to have a record of what they did. And then you'll find, presumably, that one of your users is compromised in some way, like their laptop was stolen or something, and somebody came in as them and did something bad, and you have to get to the bottom of it. That's instant response. So I got a few iClickers about that stuff. Good. So, email. We're going to send email what you use. SMTP, which is Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. That's what's used to send email. It's not POP3, that's used to receive email only. Sending goes on a different protocol than receiving, which is kind of silly, but that's the way it is. If you only go from server to server, you use SMTP, but the last step where you take it off the local mail server out of your inbox and put it on your hard drive, that comes by POP3 or IMAP. And it's not that commonly done anymore. Most people just use a web service and look at it right on the server. Right. Which one is old and insecure but still used for VPNs? That's PPTP, which is point-to-point tunneling protocol.
What's PPP?
point-to-point protocol. And so this is the improvement of that, to make a VPN client. All right, and dial-up connections, what are they using? You dial up with a modem and connect to the internet. All right, they use PPP. It goes one end of the cable to the other end of the cable, point-to-point, which is typically you to your internet service provider. All right, Cisco VPNs, what do they use? Cisco uses TACACS Plus. It's their new version. Terminal Access Control, I forget what it all stands for. Anyway, that's their alternative, which is considered pretty good. All right, which authentication protocol encrypts passwords, but not the rest of the process of authentication? That's Radius. Rodax sends daily user service. Anyway, ports. Port numbers at layer 4 are used to designate specific services on a computer. You use the IP address to find the physical location of the computer, and then you use port numbers to separate all the different things that might be running on that computer. So the original plan in the request for comments that define this stuff is that the first 1,024 ports are reserved for listening services that are well known and famous, like email and web, and you require administrator privileges to listen on those ports. Then the ports up to 49,000 and change are supposed to be used for other services that aren't as essential, like Yahoo Instant Messenger and all the other things on the internet. And then ones above 49,000 are supposed to be used as the listening end, really temporary things. See, when I connect to it, I'm going to make a couple of connections here, and let's look at it. Here's a connection to my server. I'll just refresh that page. And let's go to a command prompt and do netstat -an, pipe it through more so you can see it doesn't scroll off the screen. So now I've got an established connection to something on port 80, a 141 address. All these established connections, these first 4 connections right here are fine examples. Those are all connections from my local address, which is 147, 144, 2034, to a remote address on port 80. So there are different parts of this web page. And you'll notice that the remote port, which is the last number here, is always 80, because I'm just connecting over HTTP. But the local port is a big number, and it's different for each one. 49781, 49782, 783, 784. This is completely normal. If you make a connection, you open a browser, you connect to a web page, it just picks a random high-numbered port, bigger than 49,000, to be your end of that connection. The next browser window you open just takes the next number and the next number, and typically if you open a modern web page, it has several other components harvested from different servers, so opening this one web page created 4 local connections with local ports. That's what you're supposed to do because the Mac is compliant with standards. That is, unfortunately, Windows XP is not compliant with standards because Microsoft does this a lot. They just do what they want based on a sort of half-baked interpretation of the standards, and they don't care because they're the elephant in the room. After they do it, that makes it the standard. So what Microsoft did with Windows XP, and I think other versions, is they just, for those local ports, they started them at 1100. They used these ones as temporary local ports, which is not what's supposed to happen. So in practice, the distinction between Category 2 and Category 3 is gone. Microsoft squashed it. Anyway, so they're all used arbitrarily. Everything from 1100 on. But by Windows 7, Microsoft started being much more standards compliant. Windows 7 actually starts at 49,000 the way it's supposed to for these ephemeral local ports. Because my local end of the connection is only going to last for a couple minutes. As soon as I close the browser, it's gone. But listening services would be more standard. And so you have things listing on ports 50, 50, and so on. Anyway, those are the ephemeral ports. Here's some common ports. You do have to know maybe the common 10 or 15 ports to pass any complicated exam of any sort, really. So you should know pretty much these. FTP is kind of an irritating thing. It uses ports 20 and 21, one for control and the other to transfer data, but it also uses a random high-numbered port in its most common mode. So it's a problem for firewall administrators. To let FTP come through, you actually have to let through traffic on a wide range of ports that you'd probably rather block. It would be a lot nicer if it would just sit on one control port. SMTP is 25, there it is. SSH 22, you see a lot of that. That's secure sockets, secure shell client, SSH. Telnet on 23, and you see some others here. DNS on 53 is real important, and I've talked about that before. DNS used to be UDP 53, and now you need TCP 53 also because of modern signed records because of DNSSEC. And of course HTTP and TFTP. TCP to view the web. TFTP is trivial file transfer protocol used to update software into phones and routers, and also used by some viruses that would crawl right onto your Windows 2000 machine without you doing anything. You connect the cable, you don't open a browser or anything, viruses climb right up the wire on your machine because it was running a TFTP server by default. You can just execute a trivial file transfer to move, and trivial file transfer protocol has no name and no password. File just transfers from here to there, blank, nothing at all. So that's, I thought people were just making this up. If you connect, something will crawl right up the wire into your machine, and that's totally what happens. That's why they had to put a firewall in Windows XP Service Pack 2 to block TFTP by default. Anyway, all right, so I did this actually, but maybe I'll do a couple more here. So I did a web connection, so let's do a couple more. If I have this one available, matter of fact, I could do this. I could watch netstat -am pipe more. That should work. There, now it'll be alive. It'll update every 2 seconds. So let's shove that to the side, and let's have another one, and create some connections to watch. All right. So now make this bigger. If I do telnet, for example, City College allows telnet. Unfortunately, if it was up to me, I would have blocked it long ago. But you can telnet to fog.ccsf.edu, and when you do, it makes a connection from a local address to the next ephemeral port up to port 23 here. Now it's asking me for a name and a password, and I'm not going to put a name and password in here because I'm not a complete idiot. It is kind of entertaining though. Maybe I think I have time. Let me demonstrate it with Wireshark, what passwords look like going up there. So let's start Wireshark. Here, Wireshark. There it comes. And start it capturing. Okay, there we go. And if I go back to here, and now I put in a password, which is going to be fool. Enter. Okay. I just sent my password up there, and it's going to say login incorrect, because that's not the right password. Now we're going to see what Telnet did there. All right, let's see if I can find it. This is not going to be too big a job to hunt it down.
You search for.
Yeah.
Did you see something already? It's up there?
I don't know.
Search.
Let's see if I can find any protocol.
Wait, capture file.
Search by protocol.
Yeah, I can't sort, but I don't think it's going to appear in protocol that way.
No?
That's why I'm going to hunt around a little bit. I know it's, see if I can spot anything good. Gratuitous art. There's a bunch of extra junk on here. Dropbox, standard query response. I think I'm going to try searching by that address. Let's take destination address. This will do it, because 147.144.13 is the destination. And so there we are, telnet data. That's what I wanted to find. That worked. So here's the telnet data. So if you look at the telnet packet, the last character there is the F. That it's 1 character per packet. F-O-O-L. That's how telnet works. 1 packet per letter. Which is, among many other problems, fantastically inefficient, right? I had 1 byte to move, and I had to send 67 bytes to move it. But that's how telnet works, because telnet was originally supposed to be used down a phone line to connect your terminal to a computer that was right there. It was intended to encode the key presses one by one and send them to the computer down your own twisted pair of wire across your own room. And then it was just adapted and to be used over the internet. But that's how telnet goes. So by the way, this does mean if you try to search for your password with like edit, find packet, you won't find it because it's not going to find those letters in that order anywhere. It's still sending your password into clear where anybody can steal it, but you might not realize that if you just do this test. Anyway, that's the joy of telnet. Really, everybody should block telnet and FTP at the firewall and not let people use it because it's a snare and a delusion if you think you're logging in on telnet, it's creating some kind of security. It's instead just wasting the time of your authorized users to remember passwords and not stopping the bad guys from stealing, and that's anti-secure. Anyway, and so there's FTP also, which I guess is easier to do in a browser. There is anonymous FTP, and there's named FTP, but anonymous FTP servers are all over the place, like there's one at Microsoft, I think. ftp.microsoft.com. Everybody has them, so there we go. I just made an established connection on port 21, and then it timed out or closed, but here I am now. If I start a transfer, let's find something, hopefully it's not there. I made another one on 21 to download that. I'll download this. See, every time I do it, it opens a port on 21 for data transfer, and then the file comes down, and when it's done, it'll close that port. So you can see 21 appears and then closes. So it just downloaded this directory all the things you can get on the FTP server. In my opinion, this should also all be blocked at the firewall, really, because although this is not a security risk, anonymous FTP, I didn't put in name and password, it's a poor user experience, in my opinion. If you go to ftpmicrosoft.com, you just see folders of files here like it was a floppy disk. And why do you present this user experience to your user? You could just as well write a web page, use HTTP that says what this is, what these products are, click here for help, click here to buy it, you know. This is really, really old-fashioned. To just give somebody a folder full of files and expect them to figure it out. But it is commonly done, and this is for like tech support people that are in the field that need to download some tool, you just put it up here. It's possible to deliver files that way, it's just a really old-fashioned way to do it. But the part where you log in with a name and password, you tell Net, is awful, that's sending your password in plain text. And really, I guess I can probably show you that one too. I should be able to do it here. Let's go to one that has a password. Like you can use FTP to update your City College web page, which I wouldn't recommend, but you can. So I could do S-bound. You put your name right here. I think let's try this. fog.ccs.edu, that's a City College. Let me start my packet capture going again. I think let's see if this is going to ask me for a password. I think it is. Ah, it is. No, it's asking me for some stupid updates. Get lost. I need the program this thing not to happen in the middle of class. No, don't do that. Just go away. There we are, name and password, life is good. All right. So it's asking me for name and password, and we can see how that came through. Come on, start capturing, there we go. All right, so my name is Sam, and my password is complete idiot. Okay, so I log in, and now it's going to tell me that that's the wrong password, which is fine. So now I should be able to find out. Now this one, I think, does go in one packet, so I think this technique will work. String, packet bytes. There we are. Pass complete it. So it just sends it right like that, and anybody can steal it. So this is why FTP is really bad for your health, and nobody should be using it. You should be using secure FTP, which runs it over port 22 and encrypts it. Otherwise, why do you give people passwords and then make them throw them over the wire unencrypted? You just demonstrated that you have no idea what's going on here. You gave it to the bad guys, and all you're doing is locking your good guys out when they forget the password. You're not stopping the bad guys. That's the opposite of security. It's an eye service to the good guys, but provided to the bad guys. So, yeah.
If you ran through a VPN, then it'd be in an encrypted, right?
Exactly. If you did it through VPN, it would be fine. Although, when it got to your local area network, it would then be in clear text, which is still a problem.
Man in the middle?
No, yeah, or someone at the company.
Yeah.
And if any company machine is infected, so really, you should be encrypting your LAN traffic also. This is a common mistake people make. Otherwise, someone on the company premises can still sniff it, and that's still a vulnerability, but it's not as bad as sending it over the whole internet. So it's an improvement. But it would be better to just use an encrypted protocol in the first place. All right. Good. All right. But that is one possible countermeasure. A VPN does lower your risk. It's not, but I would think the best countermeasure, but it is an option. So you got firewalls. The typical firewall, the old-fashioned one, like the one built into Windows for free, will block things by port number and protocols. So to block protocols you're not using like UDP69, and you can do a little more than that. Your modern firewalls, like a Palo Alto firewall, can do much more. They can actually look at all into the packet, and they can tell if this is a Facebook packet or TeamViewer packet or a MySpace packet or streaming music, and you can have rules that certain Active Directory groups are allowed to listen to music and other groups aren't, and all that jazz. But those things are pretty expensive. And of course, port scanners, like NNAP, you've used this in the project, so if you happen to use it pretty soon. This just sends a whole lot of SYN packets to the server, measures where it got SYN-ACK, so it can tell which ports are open. Things that respond with SYN-ACK, they're open. The things that didn't respond at all are filtered, so if the packets aren't even getting there, there's a firewall in the way. The things that respond with reset are closed, which means your packets reach the server, but it is not listening on that port. Like if you send a SYN on port 80 to something that is not a web server, it will respond with a reset saying, your request has been heard and denied. But if you put a firewall in the way, you just get no answer at all. Your request was not even heard. All right. So a few other things about that stuff. And then I'll start doing some of the binary. So an ephemeral port. Which one of these is the ephemeral port? At 57,008. There we are. That's the temporary local port on your end, which will really only be used for a minute or so. And then available to be reused for some other purpose. All right, what protocol are you going to get to if you do this command? I don't know if everyone's going to get this. Let's see. Yeah, a lot of people got it. Now, it's something I forgot to mention about Telnet. You can use Telnet to do a simple little port scan. You can Telnet to any port you want, even a port that's not a Telnet port. You can Telnet to port 80.
Oh,
And I don't think I've demonstrated that in this class, so let me do it now. Here, I can tell you that if I do a Telnet to www.ccsf.edu on port 80, I connect to a web server, and you can do web browsing this way. It's just not exactly pretty. Now I'm connected, but it's waiting for my request. I had to get rid of get/http/1.1, enter, and then I get a response which says it was a bad request. But this is my 400 bad request. The actual proper request is about 10 lines of stuff with accepting, coding, and the name of the host you're looking for and all that jazz. But you can surf the web this way, and this is something you do to test to see if your server's working, if you're in a hurry and you're too cheap to like download an app or something. Yeah.
And it's unencrypted, so if
It's
you're
all
on
encrypted,
Wi-Fi-
absolutely. So you can totally catch it. But it is a way to just test and see if something's up. Commonly used by like help desk people. Yeah.
So at the bottom of that comment you just did, it shows everything, the Apache version.
It does.
Mods.
Absolutely.
A security threat?
It is, absolutely. That's a security, that's an information disclosure vulnerability. This is an unprofessional thing to do. If you just turn on Apache and you leave it in the default config, it will tell you everything about it at the end, and you ought to take that off. A proper server would just say City College web server or something like that. You don't need to tell them what version of encryption protocols you're using. That's just asking for it. That's a kick me sign. Yeah.
If you put 4443 instead of 80,
Yeah.
would that be encrypted or?
No, but it'll see if it's open. So if I connect to something that is on 443, like HTTP, I got any mail.google.com on 443. It will connect, and now I can send it stuff, but it's not going to take it because it's not encrypted. Now I would have to send it encrypted stuff. So it's going to just hang up on me. What are you talking about? But you can at least see the port is open. That's about all you can do. It's a good point. All right. That's one use of Telnet I didn't mention. Anyway, so, all right, so if I send a SYN to port 80, what reply do you get? Assuming that port is open. You get a SYN ACK from an open port. Not an ACK, but a SYN ACK is what you normally get. SYN, ACK, ACK. That's the three-way handshake when you're connecting to an open port and everything's working. All right, I send a SYN to a filtered port 80. What reply do you get? All right, you get no answer at all, something else. If it's filtered, that means it was blocked by a firewall and never even reached the server, and you get no answer at all. This is slow, by the way. This Nmap scans against filtered ports are slower because it just has to wait until it gives up, like 30 seconds or something. Whereas if it gets a reply, that comes within a second and you get your answer. Yeah.
When do you get reset packets?
You get a reset when you go to a closed port. That's what, and so it received the request, but it's not listening, so the operating system sends a reset, okay, you were asking for a web page, I'm not going to give you one, no point asking. Because if you filter it, you're going to try again several times, that's why it takes a while. You figure your packet just got lost. Yeah.
So it's filtered on the firewall, but it's closed on the host?
Right.
All right.
Exactly. And so
It's got a firewall on the host.
if you have a firewall on the host, it amounts to the same thing in practice, because if the firewall blocks it, the process behind never hears it. So you can, this is why, if defense in depth is why you do this, right? Because you could ask, for example, this all started because of port 69, TFTP. Your Windows 2000 machine could just get infected without you doing anything. So what Microsoft could have done, and they did do, is just make it so later versions of the operating system were not running TFTP servers by default. And that could be interpreted as fixing the problem, but it doesn't really fix the problem. It'd be better to also have a firewall, so that even if someone accidentally turns it on, it doesn't come through unless you really want it to. That's defense in depth. And you have a company firewall. So if you're going to do something, you have to make sure that the service is running, your local firewall is letting it through, and your company firewall is letting it through. So only things that you really want to do get done. That's the idea.
So it would only say closed if it was on your local machine and you closed it off with the.
Yes, it would only say closed if it made it all the way. If you get a closed response, that means it reached the server and got it reset.
Okay.
And that means the server received the request and was not listening on that port. And you can see what ports you're listening on.
Oh, so it's just not listening. It's not like they closed it off manually.
Right. No, it just means you're not running anything bound to that port. You can see it right here. See, I'm listening on this port, listening on that port,
Yeah.
listening on these ports. I'm listening on 631, which is Unix file and printer sharing. So those are the ports I'm listening on. So if somebody scans this machine on 631, I'll send a SYN ACK. But if they scan on 632, it'll send a reset saying, I'm not listening on 632. Okay, nibbles. Okay. So this is the first thing to learn about binary. If you have a base 10 number and you write down 147, you need 100, 4 10s, and 7 1s. You just learned this is the 1s, this is the 10s, this is the 100s. And that's because we use base 10 with 10 numbers. So this is 10 to the 0, 10 to the 1, and 10 to the 2. But in binary, you've got 2 numbers, 0 and 1. So it's the number of 1s, the number of 2s, number of 4s, because you only have 0 and 1 are the only symbols you're allowed to use. So the number here, the 1 on the right is the number of 1s, the second number is the number of 2s, the third number is the number of 4s, so this number is 4 plus 1, that's 5 in binary. So you can count 7 this way, 0, 1, then 1, 0, 1, 1, then you put a 1 here and turns to 0 and rolls over, 1 here rolls over, and you go to there. You get used to it. 1, 1, 1 is 7 because it's 4 plus 2 plus 1. So binary numbers are going to be much longer than base 10 numbers, about 3 times as long. And then you can count, you can make a nibble. A nibble is a 4-bit object, it's half of a byte. They're not talked about that much these days, but I think they should be because it's much easier to learn binary if you do it a nibble at a time. So a nibble is 4 bits, and all you have is this number of 1s, number 2s, number 4s, and the number of 8s, and that's it. And those are all the nibbles. There are only 16 of them. You can drop leading zeros, that's 0. Here's 7 again, 4 plus 2 plus 1. Here's 8, you have an 8 and none of the other things. Here's 8 plus no 4s plus a 2 plus a 1, that's 11. 10, 10 is 10, that's a useful one to remember. And all 1s is 15, that's as high as they get. That's 8 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1. So 4 bits at a time can be turned into one base 10 number that will go from 0 to 15. And there's the bytes. So, you know this stuff? That's a 3-digit base 2 number. And you can get to 1 nibble here. But if you want to get to a byte, you've got to have 2 nibbles. Now this is the hard way. But this is what everybody taught me. It wasn't until years later I learned the smarter way, which we're going to get to. But you go to extend the pattern. You have 1s, 2s, 4s, 8s. This is 60s, 32s, 64s, and 128. So that number, 1001, 1001, is 128 plus 16 plus 8 plus 1. And that's kind of irritating to do in your head, but it is 153. This is one way to get there. I make a lot of mistakes when I do it this way, trying to add 128 and 32 and 64 and 16. But if you're careful, you can do it that way. And that's the one we'll try today. If you know a smarter way, feel free. But if that's all you know, let's see if you can do it. So it's 1100, 0010. What is that in base 10? Okay. Here's D. Let me see how many people got it. Most people got it. But let me talk a little bit about how to get it. And then we'll go on to another, because there's some people that didn't get it. So the simplest thing, this is number 128s, and that's 64s, and that's 2. So it's 128 plus 64 plus 2. We bring up a text editor. 128, 64, and 2. So that's 194. And that's a simple way to get there. All right, let's try another one of these. How about that one? All right, that's A. And everybody got it. Good, okay. So you can see it's 64 plus 5. That's 64, and that's 5. So let's try another one of them. It looks like you folks know this, which is very good. All right, that is 91. I think that's right. Did I get it right? Because this is 64 and 16, that's 80. And this is 11. 10, 10 plus 1. So it's 91.